Good morning. It's Thursday, March 30th, 2023, and this is the Education and Culture Committee. We are going to be taking up a number of CIP items this morning in the libraries, in the cultural area, the culture part of education and culture. So we're excited to be here. Have my colleague, Councilmember Albanaz, and just wanted to make an announcement. My colleague, Councilmember Mink, our colleague, Councilmember Mink, who's lead for libraries, is very ill, and so she'll be okay, but she's just wasn't able to participate today. So she told me actually she was set up to do virtual, had her lead for libraries in her pen, and was all ready to go. But so we're gonna march on without her today, but wish her the best in a big recovery. So with that, we're going to first go to, I think, talk about the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center. And I know we have representatives, Director Dice from DGS, the Arts and Humanities Council. Good to see you. OMB, Susan Jenkins, and OMB. I see we have Mary Beck here. Just wanted to start by saying we love the Wheaton Arts community. Both Councilmember Albanaz and I, and many council members, really look forward to participating in the walk, and we all get there early to try to get the best picture so that we can walk in the parade. And it's just one of the many great features. Obviously, the gallery. I have purchased multiple pieces from that gallery, and it's just a great community. And this project is going to be a great addition to the Wheaton Arts community, and really excited about it. And this obviously, as I'll turn to staff in a minute, but this is to continue to foster and create an arts center that feeds that really burgeoning arts community and has education and engagement outcomes. And great to see our regional service director, Luisa Cardona, here, so good to see you. And is an opportunity for housing in partnership with Montgomery Housing Partnership, which is something we desperately need and are always talking about, particularly in that area. So I'll turn it over to staff to maybe kick us off, and then we'll go into DGS, unless Councilmember Albanaz, you want to say anything? So we're looking forward to this, and I know our colleague Natalie Fanny-Gonzalez, we've been talking about this. She is in Taiwan. We're coming back soon, but this is obviously a big priority for her and her district as well. Ms. Chen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carolyn Chen, legislative analyst with the County Council. Today we'll be speaking about the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center. Two items. The first one is an FY23 appropriation for $75,000. That is to begin the process of getting a low-income tax credit with Montgomery Housing Partnership. Excuse me. The second item will be the fiscal year 23 to 28 full CIP project for the next 6 years to build the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center with affordable housing and performance spaces, etc. Before we go on, I gotta get a drink.
Yeah, we're gonna. Oh, you have something. Okay.
I have a little Starbucks. Before we go on, thank you, Susan. Oh, too early. I want to give a very big shout out to Ronnie Warner, the Chief of Office and Planning and Development at DGS, and Amy Donan, Redevelopment Program Manager at DGS in the back. As I've been told, these are the two people that are responsible for the site selection, and I just want to recognize them today, and I'm very glad that they could be here because I just invited them yesterday. So
let me just interject here for a second.
Introduce yourself and then interject.
David Dice, Director of Department of General Services. Ronnie and Amy have been the point and lead on this, but I don't want to throw them under the bus and say that they're the ones that have picked things and made decisions. So it's ultimately come from the county executive through me. So
there you go. That's like every good leader. You fall on the sword there. But so, should we move to?
Yes, if we could just go briefly on introductions on this panel right here, including Louisa, just as I know not everyone knows everyone.
Great. Right.
Susan Jenkins, CEO, Arts and Humanities Council.
Wonderful.
The aforementioned David Dice, Director of General Services.
Wonderful.
Ronnie Warner, Chief of the Office of Planning and Development in the Department of General Services. Greg Allison, Deputy Director, General Services.
Alicia Singh, Fiscal and Policy Analyst, OMB.
Okay,
And Mary Beck, Office of Management and Budget.
great. Are there any comments that DGS or RC that want to make related to either of these items? Dr. Dice, go ahead.
Sure. I just, for the record and for the council members' benefit, although I know that there's been a lot of discussion about this for some time now, this has been a project that has been around for a number of years, originally conceptualized and championed by Nancy Navarro, who I think hopefully will one day be recognized for this. She has long been, or was long, a champion of the culture and character of the Wheaton area, and so this.
Time.
It was she who sort of conceptualized the vision of what this facility would be, and we kept her involved and informed of the process as it went. And that process, just a snapshot of how that worked, is we did hire a consultant specializing in these types of venues. We worked extensively over the years with a number of different stakeholders, including businesses, community members, the arts community as well, to get a sense of what they were looking for. We also, though, were looking at the concept of viability and sustainability, not sustainability in the environmental sense, which we always look at, but sustainability in that whatever is created here has to have legs. It's got to be able to produce revenues and all that will help it to maintain some economic viability and sustainability. And that became a critical issue. And the consultant, and we had discussions with folks throughout the National Capital Region, as well as other areas of the country, to see what kind of facility works best, what kind of programming works best. And that went into that. We knew that there have been questions regarding the site, the requirement certainly had to be that it was in with the Arts and Entertainment District, and I can provide council members, if they want, a briefing on the sites that we did look at and the pros and cons associated with those sites. And then COVID hit. And so while the project has been ongoing regarding its analysis and conceptual studies and site selection, we are now told subsequently from the arts community, Ms. Jenkins among others, that there's been some different thoughts about art programming. This facility was not intended initially or conceptually throughout the process to be a torpedo factory type space. It was a place to show forth the culture of the community, art exhibits, performance art, practice studio spaces and the like, but not necessarily a maker space, if you will. Again, we've just recently been getting feedback on how things have changed, and there's maybe opportunities to discuss that as far as an analysis of some of the program space. There's also been a request to consider artist studio space as far as living space. Those are all things that can be looked at. But what we're really faced with now is a challenge regarding finding good space in Wheaton. The number of the spaces we looked at are suitable should we change the program to a multi-level and come forth with about another $20 million just for land acquisition. So the fact that we have a wonderful opportunity with MHP, who can bring forth a sizable amount of affordable housing in conjunction with the street level space. And I know Ms. Chen's put together an amazing packet and included reference and some selections from the website that Ronnie maintains with her team. But on that website, and we didn't bring those, but we can certainly provide some conceptual drawings. The intended facility has been mischaracterized as being in the basement of the building, and it's everything but the basement. This is ground level, made large heights, large empty walls for displaying art, open space for three-dimensional art and the like. So it's actually a very grand space intended to highlight what arts and cultural centers do.
Right.
So that's just a background of the things that we've looked at and considered, both site and program requirements. I just want to make clear, though, that this is an opportunity with this site. And if we're not prepared to go with the arts and culture, we're going to lose this site.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back to the drawing board. Elements of programming we can discuss, but the site is a tremendous opportunity we hate to lose.
And just to be clear, Director Dice, the site is 11507 Georgia Avenue.
Yes, yes.
Right, okay. And I do want to, yeah, I will come to you right after this. I do want to acknowledge, obviously, we received letters that are in the packet from the Wheaton Arts Parade and Dan Thompson, who has expressed some concern around the economics of the location and whether it will be, kind of increase and be a part of the vitality and stimulate that economic activity in Wheaton. So I want to allow anyone who wants to speak to that. I want to acknowledge it. They're obviously an important partner. And then WUDAC, who supports the approval of both of the items. But as you alluded to, is requesting additional, kind of discussion. But understand the point. Sometimes, bird in the hand and you have to act. And so if you could, I did want to acknowledge them because they're, important partners. And if anyone, if yourself or anyone else on the panel would like to speak to, and then I'll turn to Councilmember Albanaz, those issues that have kind of been raised, which you did a little bit, but just more explicitly maybe.
Yeah, certainly. I have met with representatives from with WUDAC and other representatives from the community over the last year, a few months at least, when we became more definitive about this particular location. I mean, there's been discussions with members of the community off and on over the years, but when this particular location became available and we started to pursue it with gusto, so it started to focus the discussion. And we have listened to those concerns. There are economics involved, absolutely. This is already a $40 million project. If we were to have to purchase property or redevelop parking lot district lots where we'd still have to make the PLD whole, this just adds to that cost. As far as the economic viability and stimulus, this facility is approximately 4/10 of a mile from the Wheaton Metro location. And again, certainly within the Arts and Entertainment District. And it's an equivalent walk from the Metro in Wheaton to this facility as it would be from the Silver Spring Metro to the Civic Building or the Fillmore. I knew there was some other crazy place.
Or AFI.
Something else. Yeah, they're all about the same equidistance. They both have to cross over Georgia Avenue, one a little further to the north than the other. So there are the similar challenges, but the separation from the public transportation hub, being the Wheaton Metro stop, is very similar to that of Silver Spring, and Silver Spring hasn't been harmed.
Yeah.
I know there's distinctions and differences, which have been pointed out to us between Wheaton and Silver Spring. The point being, though, that the distance is not necessarily an onerous distance, and in getting there you will pass a number of shops and businesses. Granted, it is not the original thought of location was Lot 13, on which the Wheaton County and Parks and Planning headquarters is now constructed, but there wasn't enough of Lot 13 left to do this building on without it being a three-level structure. And as a matter of fact, the additional child care facilities and others that are sought for the Wheaton headquarters will now encroach even more onto the surface Lot 13, leaving less of that available. So, and again, there's other sites as well, including looking at the mall across the street, different kind of space, different site, and well, technically within the district is far less attainable and contributing to the walking environment that the CBD in Wheaton would have.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to, give voice to those concerns.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that when I was looking at this site, it's right across the street from Worksource Montgomery.
It is.
Which is obviously our employment center, So I think often what happens with urban districts is more comes, and then that place becomes more included into the area, and it's happened in Silver Spring and does in other places over the years. So it might not seem like it's in the core heart now, but hopefully that core and heart will move. So I think from my perspective, I understand it makes a lot of sense. Also, just right down the street from the library, obviously. So I want to turn to Councilmember Alvarez, who had a few questions.
Thank you so much, Chair Jawando. So I'm excited about this conversation because we're making progress. We're getting closer. We're inching our way along here. When this was originally envisioned, all of us were like, wow, aha, we need something like this. And Ms. Jenkins has been actively promoting Wheaton and its possibilities for a long time now. And this is a key component to that overall strategy. So for context, I'm having flashbacks to when there was a controversy over where we were going to put the Wheaton Library, because there were a lot of people that wanted that downtown. Tremendously controversial, but it ended up making sense economically to keep it where it was. And then we added the recreation center component, which became a huge success. I was there last night. It remains an incredibly popular location, a true regional destination. So I am personally not opposed to this location because I do think it better leverages assets that we already have with resources. But I think we need to think bigger here because we do have those assets, and Chair Jawando just enumerated a couple of them, but we need to think creatively about how we leverage the recreation center and that facility. We also have the volunteer fire department that has a beautiful space on top that they rent out. We've got the retail space in the park and planning building, which I think is still open. And so, if there's some way we could creatively leverage what we've already got, we mentioned Worksource Montgomery, and there are probably others I haven't even thought of yet. And what I think we also need to do, if we're thinking really big, is work with our partners in the state to make Georgia Avenue more walkable and make the intersection there less dangerous than it currently is. Because let's be candid, although the distance may not be very far, anybody who is in that particular vicinity, particularly on the Georgia Avenue and University, I mean, that is a very dangerous intersection. And people with strollers, it's unlikely that they would be, they would if they had to, but it's not enticing to its walkability, which I think is ultimately what we all want to do here. So as a follow-up to this, I think it'd be good for us to talk to T&E and our partners in the state and to see what creatively we could do with that particular space, because there's so much potential in Wheaton. It's such a fabulous, fabulous community. But we're only scratching the surface. And I think there's so much more that we can do in that particular vicinity. So just your thoughts, Director Dice, on any or some of what I just said.
Absolutely. Listen, I am a big fan of Wheaton. I think Wheaton's just a cool place. I really enjoy it. I go there on my own time, not just company time. But and it is very culturally diverse. It is got a lot to offer, both in its eclectic nature, and I think that there is an awful lot that is not done that could be done. And this is not, let me just say, it's not necessarily a one and done project. This is maybe the hub for showing off what is done elsewhere within Wheaton. Yes, there are spaces available. Yes, there's other things that could be done in other locations which can meet some of those interests in maker spaces and artists' communities. And then use this facility as the place that is the showcase for what's done elsewhere. We had, if you'll recall, when you were working with the county in another capacity, the discussions about the Wheaton Rec Center at the library site. There were concerns about people from the communities surrounding, particularly on the other side of Georgia Avenue about accessing the library by foot. People want to be able to walk to their neighborhood libraries. Of course, that was always a problem, even at the old library, and with increased traffic usage of that site, that became an issue, which is why we expanded the parking. But we would agree wholeheartedly that particularly the intersection of Georgia and University is something that needs some serious review. I don't necessarily think that it hinders the use of this particular facility. There is parking that will be available there, but even just longer timing the lights so people could walk without feeling they need to race across that intersection might be an improvement. But I'm not a traffic engineer, so I can't make those proposals knowledgeably. But we would agree that the walkability of Georgia is something that Wheaton would benefit from, generally speaking. But and again, the review of how best to exploit the arts community in the Wheaton area. Again, some of these discussions came up when we were back in 2019 when we first kicked off these analyses and studies, and there is a great deal of interest. But you have to, every artist community, every artist in the history, believe it or not, I used to be an art history major. Here we go. But needed patrons.
Yeah.
And because typically arts functions are not self-sustaining. So there needs to be some system, and that's why it requires, I think, to your point, Councilman Ravernos, that a larger study about how to reinforce and strengthen the arts community throughout the Wheaton area.
I appreciate that. Just a couple follow-up questions. How much square footage are we talking about? Just curious.
40,000.
40,000,
Yeah.
okay. And parking, since it is a little bit more of a destination spot, walkable for sure, but we'll have its set of challenges.
I'm going to ask my Chief of Planning and Development, the aforementioned Ronnie Warner, who is intimately familiar with this facility, to address the details.
So there will be a shared parking garage between the housing and the art center, and right now we're working on traffic counts and things like that for the sketch plan submission for the project, and we'll have to figure out the allocation between the two. We're hoping for some shared parking between the two uses, also knowing that we do have not only people walking from the metro, but there is bus service on Georgia Avenue, so we're anticipating quite a few people might come by bus as well. But we don't have the final traffic count just yet, or parking count.
I appreciate that, and I'm open to thinking creatively about how best to utilize that space. But one thing that I know Councilmember Navarro, if she were here, would say the performance aspect, the placemaking aspect, was very important to her and to all of us, because there is no real performance space. And when we lost Bushy Drive Theater, we lost yet another box theater in Montgomery County when we already had so few of them. So that type of performance space, I think, is going to be critical. And one of the softenings of the blow of when we lost Bushy was this particular facility. So that has to stay in some way, because I think that's going to be important.
And I believe Ms. Chen's packet includes, if it doesn't, I will direct council members to the website. In the DGS website, Office of Planning and Development has a whole page focused on this project and lists what the current program offers, as well as including artists' renderings. Okay, artist renderings of the spaces. But performing arts is as a larger theater and then a smaller theater, and it's flex space. It's not like these are fixed podium or tiered seats. These are flex spaces that can be used for a number of different uses for the community. So it's we're trying to take, even though 40,000 square feet sounds like a lot, there's a lot of interest. We anticipate a lot of uses: community groups, meetings, bar mitzvahs, parties. It could be any number of things, as well as performance space.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for now. I might jump back in, but that's good for now.
Yeah. And just wanted to see if, obviously we're going to move on these items. on the transportation, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to mention it when we came back. I know we don't have our DOT partners here, and obviously the state is with SHA with the Georgia Avenue. I see this kind of distance as an opportunity to really push for more improvement on Georgia Avenue.
Agreed.
Because it's one thing to say, oh, well, people got to get around. No, now this area they have to get around, and we want them to get around, and it's part of the cultural fabric of Wheaton. You have something to say on that?
Yeah, good morning, Greg Austin, Department of General Services. Yes, so in addition to all of the planning efforts that we have underway in the executive branch, we are also collaborating with Park and Planning in anticipation of MHP, our partner, submitting as an applicant the sketch plan for this property. So as it relates again, Park and Planning, hearing a lot from the community as well about this project, is really focused on accessibility from all modes of transportation. So in addition to just Georgia Avenue and University, we're also looking at Elkin and University, which is also a very challenging intersection, and perhaps the preferred way to get to that other side of University if you're coming from Metro, or perhaps parking at the Veterans Plaza parking garage and other points. And then further, to Mr. Dice's original point about the business viability piece, the sustainability, we need to create partnerships. And so it's 0.4 miles from Metro, it's 0.3 miles from the Wheaton Library and Rec Center, which needs to be a partner if this is going to do well. Needs to partner with the outdoor venue space that we have at Performance Plaza, brand new outdoor performance space, need to have the partnerships there. So we've already honed in, Councilmember Jawando, on precisely your suggestion that that this particular capital project actually spur more pedestrian improvements and other things that would customarily come with any capital project the county does. So our colleagues at DOT are finely tuned in this conversation, and we've already started to look at those improvements and what's going to be necessary in order to get people to and from this venue, not just to shared parking, but walking, riding the bus, Metro, and any other mode of transportation. So
great to hear. And
Yep.
one of the things that was mentioned, I think, at one of the meetings I had was the idea of kind of a circulator bus that, or a shuttle that would take people from Metro down there and go back, that could run during peak hours, or, you could figure that out. But just throwing that in the mix, because I think, particularly as we start, we want to get people getting there as best they can, particularly if you have a disability or a senior, you have kids with, all those things that might discourage people from walking on Georgia Avenue while cars speed by at high speeds. Ms. Jenkins, anything to add on this? Yeah, I figured. So, a lot of, we've heard artists and art space like a few times. So I know
First
that
of all,
Director Dice was an artistic major. I didn't know that, but
I'll
you
just
are
say,
really an
David,
artistic.
that I am not a major in art. I am a business major. My name is Susan Jenkins, and I'm the CEO of the Arts and Humanities Council, and I'm thrilled to be here. As Councilmember Alberno says, he's known me for quite some time, and because when I first started, I was commuting. I was commuting from Rockville to my office in Silver Spring, and because I grew up in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I've always had an affinity towards Wheaton. And so every day when I drive through there, I say, what about Wheaton? And in my role as the CEO of the Arts and Humanities Council, and the requirement that I serve all of our residents, Wheaton comes up in my mind all of the time, because I see the assets that we've been able to administer in other parts of the county, but I still come up with, what about Wheaton? So when I first came, and it was time for us to have the Wheaton A and E district redesignated, and at that time it was under great duress. There was a lot of concern about whether or not we'd receive that redesignation. We worked really hard from the Arts and Humanities Council standpoint to make sure that we did. And afterwards, as we saw more activity and the county council saw the vision, you sunk so many more funds into the Arts and Humanities Council explicitly to invigorate Wheaton. And we have seen the results of that now, almost $750,000 that we've sunk in there over the last several years. And we've seen that the artists and the arts communities have benefited. Wheaton Arts Parade is an example of what grew out of that work. So I couldn't be more aligned and attuned with my desire to see this happen. And in conversations with Councilmember Navarro, I often advocated for the fact that we heard from the community that we needed space for the expression, cultural expression that is Wheaton. Not just arts and humanities in the traditional ways, but in the culturally specific ways that we see in the communities in Wheaton. And I'm thrilled by this opportunity. So I just want to say that, you know, I am excited about what I'm hearing about the county's investments. And I am very, very, very honored that the county executive would sink this type of investment in the community, because we know it's well needed, and we've seen it in other parts of the county. It's now time for Wheaton. So what I've enjoyed about today's conversation is this intersectionality conversation. The fact that we must include DOT. We've got to have the Transportation Committee involved in these conversations. We've got to think about how best to protect our residents as they move up and down Georgia Avenue, one of the busiest areas in the county, I think. When you go from the Wheaton Metro all the way up to the library and past where this section will be, where the fire station is, where those apartments are, where those small businesses are, we'll need to protect the residents, but a circulator could do that just fine. So from our perspective, we think that the location could work quite well, and we've spent a lot of time thinking about it, hearing what our residents and our colleagues have said, knowing that we need a space in the community for that expression in Wheaton. So some of the things that I think are most important now is that while we endorse the area, the site plan, the site that's been selected, we know we'll need transportation, as I said. We'll need Department of Transportation to take a look at how we might beautify the area and protect residents as they move up and down Georgia Avenue. And we also must think about what the community has asked for inside the building. I don't think that it's in my humble opinion, it's not mine nor the county's place to decide what programming is happening in the building. That would be up to the residents. Our hope would be that the residents control the building, that they run the building, that the building is a reflection of their needs. And so I'm just hoping that we'll have an opportunity to think about the fact that if we're thinking performing arts space, we need at least staging, then we need space above the stage. We need fly space. So if we're thinking about something that's on the ground floor, it just can't occupy a one-floor area. It might be 2.5 floors. What would that mean when we partner with MHP? Affordable housing is something that artists in Montgomery County don't have the advantage, aren't able to take advantage of. So this partnership with affordable housing is a match made in heaven, in my opinion. But how can we make it so that it is a place where the artists can live, and if they are in that, if that type of art is the work that they perform, if they are able to partake in what the Wheaton Cultural Arts Center has to take. We've also talked about workforce development. So are there ways that we might help with this? So here's a pipe dream that I shared with Carolyn earlier this week. I found an email that I had written to Councilmember Alvarez in 2015 when I said, would it be possible for the Arts and Humanities Council to move in the MNC PPC building? I mention it now because when we were in the Bethesda area, we were supporting the Bethesda A&E district, and we're in Silver Spring now, and we've been supporting the Silver Spring A&E district. So helping the Wheaton A&E district as it grows and changes and adapts could be something that the Arts and Humanities Council would be interested in helping with. We also thought that if there was a way to convert some of the space in the MNC PPC building to studio space, as an incubator space for artists and small burgeoning arts organizations. Our strength is that we serve as an SBA, a small business association for arts and humanities organizations and artists in the county. So if we were able to grow them over the next several years in this space, which would be right down the street from where the Wheaton Cultural Arts Center is located, once the building is built, we would be able to take some of those that we had incubated in the space and move them over to the Wheaton Cultural Arts Center to be a community-based space that is a reflection of those that are living and working in the area already. It will be an opportunity for the county to really think about workforce development, really think about growing people in a different way. In this way, we can bring this face of the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center to the community much sooner than the physical building is in the space, and we can also support the community and maybe even grow some dreams. I have a lot of other ideas, as I'm sure you know, but those are just a few about how we can be supportive. I think now we just are asking that we take a step back and make sure that we don't make decisions about the interior of the space now that would prohibit us from growing in the future. And I think about, some of the challenges that we had when BlackRock first came online, and everybody was wondering who's doing what, who's supporting the infrastructure for that performing arts center. It took a while for us to figure out how best to support them. We've also had that with Glen Echo Park Partnership and with Strathmore, figuring out how best to support that infrastructure. Do we cover their utilities? Do we cover their rent? Do we cover their maintenance? These are things that will be very important, especially in a traditionally marginalized region like Wheaton. So I just ask that we make sure that we are not penny wise and pound foolish. A significant investment needs to be made here if we are serious, but the vision for it is immense, and I'm here for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jenkins. I need a bi-monthly dose of you, but it's an important point, and the decisions we're making today are just to allow for the LIHTC application to go forward so that we can have people living in the affordable housing. Artists should and could be among them. I agree with you on that. And to approve the funding to co-locate so they can move forward to secure the site.
That's right.
The interior discussion will be long time coming.
Great.
And should be. And it should be community-led and driven, and there should be a whole process. I see Director Dice, you'd like to say something, then I want to see if turn to Councilman Roberts. Director Dice.
Well, yes, and again, if you go to the website, you can see that to Ms. Jenkins' point, that it does anticipate additional story space for performance and things like that, and a relatively recent development that I've been cleared to speak to, even though our program is related specifically to the Cultural Center, Arts and Cultural Center. We have a partner in MHP who's also been listening in and holding its own meetings with the community. And MHP does anticipate including artists' living space, studios and things of that sort for their use. So this is the benefit of an ongoing discussion. I just wanted to add one more thing, given to the unique nature of Wheaton that everyone celebrates, and pointing to an issue that both Ms. Jenkins and Councilmember Avernos pointed out, that it wasn't just a few years ago that the A&E designation for Wheaton was in deep peril because there wasn't any, and the state hadn't seen anything going on. And that was also a motivator for this project and other things. There was an absolute dearth of space. Nothing was going on. And so then, as Mr. Osant pointed out, the library rec centers, 3/10 of a mile. This facilities from this facility, which is 4/10 of a mile from the metro stop, and other opportunities in and around Wheaton. Instead of focusing on one major arts thing in the middle of Wheaton, I would suggest that this poses an opportunity for scattering the arts throughout the Wheaton area and really make it a place where once you couldn't go anywhere and find anything arts, now you can't go anywhere and not find art. art activities, art making space, whatever form that art might take, fine arts or performing arts, that you could actually see Wheaton as a place to literally do a walkabout and
Find culture wherever you go.
everywhere you go. So it's a unique opportunity. This is just one thing, and I thank Councilmember Jawando for pointing out that this is part one. We have to get this going, and if we can get this going, we can fine tune the other parts. We got some years.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. So, where are we with the retail space in the park and planning building? 'Cause
I was really hoping we could go this whole
I know, but
conversation.
but the two are inextricably linked. I mean, the vision that Ms. Jenkins just laid out. I mean, this is square peg, square hole. Not square hole. Square peg, square. I mean, there could be a really great fit here.
Just look at the time. Well, I'm going to ask Greg Assant to provide some update on that. But before I do that, once again, the Wheaton building anticipated having some sort of restaurant or some sort of something in that space. Economic conditions, COVID, et cetera, have adversely impacted that. We have had a number of discussions over the years with people who are interested in doing something there, a restaurant type of venue there, provided that the county builds it out for them. And so this has been a driver that has been a hindrance actually to this. It's a space designed for a food operation, a restaurant type operation, but the build out by the county to the tune of a couple $1 million is something that there's never been capacity for or push to do. If there were, then there'd probably be opportunities then. But in trying to balance an overstuffed CIP, that $2 million has just never been there to underwrite the build out for a restaurateur.
Well, I would just encourage us. I mean, Ms. Jenkins has been trying to get me up to Pittsburgh for a model that's there for a number of years now. I mean, we need to revisit this, and obviously we would need our colleagues in the Planning and Housing Committee to be part of this discussion as well as our colleagues in Park and Planning. But, you know, I totally get we have some tough decisions to make in this CIP, not positive ones, but there's got to be another path here. And so it would be worth revisiting. I know you guys already have so many things on your plate, but this is a real opportunity for us to leverage an existing resource which would provide, because it's going to take a while to build this wonderful facility out, let's be honest. And so in the meantime, we could have something really awesome that could build a bridge.
Certainly.
So the conversation is timely. We just had a work session with the Economic Development Committee just last week, chaired by Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez. So for a much longer explanation than Mr. Dice just provided, you could rewatch that one. There's a lot of information in a committee meeting, but the takeaway here is that the chair of Economic Development was not satisfied with just a briefing and then thank you very much and we'll see you in 6 months. She's already asked for a number of follow-up meetings on very specific topics. So to the extent that we could have Ms. Chen coordinate with Mr. Mia as the liaison for that committee, I believe that all of these follow-up items could be addressed at the same time as part of the same conversation. So it's a very timely conversation for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I think just further on that, maybe after budget, and we can do a joint committee on that topic. I think that would be.
We would welcome that.
Something they're related. They're very related. So, okay, wonderful. Yes, Ms. Cardona.
Hi, yes, Lisa Cardona, Mid-County Regional Director. Where, Wheaton is where I am every day, and I just wanted to thank you. This is a very exciting moment for this conversation. It's an exciting time because now we get to think about the fun parts, what goes inside, as Susan said. But I also wanted to acknowledge the conversations that have been taking place, the community members that have taken it to this point, because yes, we can invest more in Wheaton, but Wheaton also has an immense amount going on. I mean, this amazing map that Ms. Chen put together, you can see all the amazing assets and qualities that are already in the community, and that our job is really just giving voice to what is already taking place in these spaces. And I have to acknowledge Jim Epstein and WUDAC, right? He will call me multiple times a day to drive these points forward, and I sincerely appreciate that, and I appreciate Dan as well, because the conversations that he brings up and the points that he brings up are things that need to be addressed, right? Are things that we need to work towards together. And Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez and WUDAC have already started in many of these conversations, like we said, about leveraging assets, about making it more walkable in order for things to happen. We're in conversations with MCDOT and SHA of how do we make Georgia Ave more walkable through art, actually. How do we insert art that slows people down, because you're already looking at the amazing, beautiful things that are taking place. And so I just wanted to say thank you, because I think this is a very important step for us to move forward, but also acknowledge the amazing work that is already taking place. The work that is being done out of the A&E through the Wheaton Urban District right now, the leveraging of Marion Fire Plaza, the investment that was made in those spaces, the new programming that will come in these spaces, the A&E that we have, and how we hope to build a board, and that this board can then help, you know, with the Arts and Cultural Center, so that a lot of these conversations are taking place, and it's very exciting, and the community is already driving these conversations. And so I'm excited that this is moving forward, and thank you so much, and thank you for Wheaton, because can't wait to have us all be there.
You're welcome, and thank you for all the work you're doing, Mid-County and Wheaton, and you know, it's one of the best moments I have as being a council member is when we opened the Wheaton Rec and Library, and there were, you know, hundreds of people out there, and you know, a lot of us brought our kids. I brought my, you know, they were up there. Yeah, Gabe and I brought our kids, and we have a lot of them. And they were running around. They were running around in there, and to this day, they still refer to that. That's the council's library. That's your guys' library, right? No, it's the community's library, but it was just such an awesome event, and I'm glad others have mentioned, which I will do. Councilmember Navarro, who was my seatmate on the Education and Culture Committee in my first term, and it just sometimes takes a while for these things to happen, and the seeds have been planted, and they're continuing to grow and sprout fruit, and the next generation will take over. And so I don't know when, you know, well, I do know when this is supposed to be built, but which is when, Director Dice? Well, what's the timeline?
Well, the timeline is that it's included in the next round of the CIP. MHP has to build its building. Right. And that's a couple-year project. Right. So that's why this is broken down into 2 phases. Once they will turn over to us what we call a cold dark shell, yeah, and then we'll come in and build that out. And as the program develops, we can inform them of where utilities need to be run and stubbed out and things like that. But I believe MHP's project is scheduled to be completed what's that? FY 27-28.
Okay,
got it. It's, again, I've talked to communities all across this county who said exactly what you've said and what others have said here this morning, that asking why does it take so long? Well, it's not an issue of the bureaucracy, it's just there's so much going on. And right now we're following MHP's lead. So MHP is actually being very aggressive about this, and they're moving forward. But things just take time. So 27, 28, and then we would come in after that for our build out.
I do want to say too, though, the build out could happen earlier. We could not afford it in the 6 years. So
that's a good point.
We are aggressively pursuing state aid in an effort to accelerate that. But because of the constraints that you've heard about in other conversations with the CIP, the build out was postponed for later. I think everyone would love to see it done sooner.
Yeah, it's an important point, and we're having a broader conversation here about the CIP and just trying to keep up with what we said we were going to do on the timelines we said we were going to do, and in so many areas, in transportation and certainly schools, and obviously this is
that's going to come up in the next items to discuss.
Exactly.
Well.
We're going to talk about that with libraries. So, all right, well, let's do our part here. Let's not delay it anymore. without objection, we'll recommend approval of supplemental appropriation 2356 for the 75,000, as well as the $2.2 million request for funding of 24.57 million as submitted by the county executive in the CIP. Any comment on that? So without objection, thank you. Move it forward. Thank you all for the update. Ms. Jenkins, I'll see you soon. Yeah, thank you. And as we're transitioning, we'll call down our friends from libraries and recreation. No, just libraries. I just see you in the room, Director Riley, and I want you down here. But just libraries today. All right. Yeah, it's helpful. So if we could, the side, thank you, we're going to continue. We're still on TV here. This is to discuss the capital improvement program, our biennial for our public libraries, and we have a few items to discuss, and want to welcome Anita Vassallo, our library director, and her team. I see Mr. Donaldson and several others from the team. I want to make sure I get everyone's name here that's here. Actually, what we'll do is we'll just have the folks who have joined us, please introduce yourself. Start at this end here. Press your mic there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Giwando. I'm Steve Capati, Business Manager.
Good to see you, Steve.
And I'm James Donaldson, one of the Assistant Directors of Libraries.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angelisa Hawes, Assistant Director for Facilities and ADA.
Good to see you.
Greg Austin, DGS.
David Dice, Director at DGS.
To your right. There you go. You just turned it off now.
Oh,
there you go. I think those are DGS mics.
Hi, I'm Anita Vassallo, Director, Montgomery County Public Libraries.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Deborah Lambert from the Office of Management and Budget.
Wonderful. Thank you. And of course, we have Ms. Chen with us again. And so we're going to talk about a couple of items here related to a few of our projects, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Chen to tee us up.
Hello, we are on time. Today we'll be talking about the CIP capital project amendments for the public libraries. It's a little confusing on some of the actual project PDFs, so I've broken it down on the first page by either public benefit or the actual library itself. So the first we'll be talking about is Damascus Library, and that covers two different projects, the library refurbishment level of effort and the 21st century library enhancements level of effort. And then we also have two libraries going through an affordable housing reassessment, Clarksburg and Chevy Chase Library. And finally, we're rebidding construction costs for Noyes Library for Young Children.
Thank you. And I'll turn over to you, Ms. Vassallo, for any opening comments. But I'm really excited that we're moving I know that nothing's as quick as we'd like, and we'll talk about that. But the fact that as last year in the Chevy Chase, we took the opportunity to officially change in the CIP and look at that as a co-location of housing redevelopment project. And obviously we're talking about that assessment for Clarksburg, and we recently passed legislation in this area that makes it a requirement every time, which I was proud to support. But obviously there are some changes here, so would like to just turn to you and get any opening comments on these projects. There you go, you got it.
Thank you, Councilmember Giwando, and hello, Councilmember Albernaz. So as we move into discussion of these projects, I do want to note that the refresh of the Damascus Library, which is on target, is going to be the last of our refresh projects for our public libraries. We began this process in 2015, and we have now come around to having touched all of our public libraries, and we will begin again after Damascus, hopefully with a refurbishment of the Silver Spring Library, which I know seems like it just opened a few years ago, but it's been there for a while and definitely shows the wear and tear and needs the process. So with our partners from DGS, this has really been a wonderful both cost saving to the county, and it has allowed us, of course, to not remove a library from the community for more than generally about 11 months. So it's been a great process, and I'm glad to see that Damascus is going to be going forward.
And what's the timeline on that?
We are in the planning.
Right, this is being done in conjunction with the adjacent recreation senior center. It's those of you who are not familiar in the audience with the facility. It's really one building, two buildings connected by a common entrance atrium.
Right. Yeah.
So, and both recreation has been trying to get their senior center refurbished, and as Director Vasala just pointed out, this is the tail end of the first round of refurbishments that include the Damascus. So the timing of both is fortuitous, because the work that needs to be done, and we're in the middle of what we call a forensic review and design process, where we literally go in and poke holes in walls and take roof samples and all to figure out exactly everything that needs to be done, so that we're not surprised. Just as part of the library refresh project, when it first started, we were surprised a lot, and we learned some hard lessons that and that's why refreshes became refurbishments, and some of those have now been taken out of that and have wholesale renovations or reconstructions. So many of our facilities, including this, have some age on them, so we go first into that forensic analysis, and now where we are with design. But we intend, I was just looking at the schedule itself, the schedule for the actual work, which will be done together with the senior center, is currently scheduled for...
We should start construction next fiscal year. So
So
FY
24, yeah.
We're wrapping up design. As you can note, for Damascus, we're nearly $1 million above for construction costs, and so that's obviously slowed us down a bit. But we're far enough along that we actually know what our construction costs are going to be, and so if that holds, we'll get started in FY 24.
Good. Well, that's as Director Vasala knows, that's a really important hub for the community up there. I think when we were doing our library tours, I think you were at that one. I don't know if you were at that one. That was the one we had the most people. It was like 100 people, and they were kind of out into the vestibule. They are almost going into the senior center, so that's going to be an important project for that community. So go ahead, Ms. And we should have a cake or something, because that's a big deal to end the cycle of refreshes. This is to your point. This is a great program.
We will have a cake.
All right, good.
Once we're done.
Once we're done.
Yeah, not when you're done. Yeah.
Just to mention, we will be applying for capital grant money from the state to
Good.
Support the costs of the Damascus refurbishment. The next two projects on the packet, the Clarksburg Library and the Chevy Chase Library and redevelopment, as you mentioned when we were discussing the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center, the need for affordable housing in the county is at a critical level, and so these two projects have been delayed somewhat so that the assessment of the feasibility of affordable housing co-located with the library can be looked at by the Department of General Services. I know that there is the residents, the community in the Clarksburg area are extremely interested in knowing more about the plans to move the library forward. I believe that one constituent contacted every council member yesterday, because I spoke to her yesterday, and that's what she told me she had done. So we do want to be, once I explained to her what the delay was going to be, she understood. So I think we just need to be very transparent about what we're doing with Clarksburg, and give some assurances to the community that yes, this project is certainly one that will come to fruition, and there will be a library to provide library services to the community. And then, of course, about the Chevy Chase Library and the redevelopment potential on that site. So again, the delay to explore that possibility. So that's the rationale for the delay of those two projects. Any questions?
And could we talk about, I want to turn to Councilmember Alvarez, but as a follow-up, but just, I think it's really important, since these are being proposed for delay, to say on the record here, where are we with the exploration of the, redevelopment that would include the housing components, obviously. So, Mr. Hassan.
Sure. So both are unique. So I'll start with Clarksburg. And again, you mentioned, Mr. Dwando, the new and improved legislation that was recently passed, and raised really no objection with the executive branch because it was work that we were doing anyhow. And so, on both of these projects in particular. So, as it relates to Clarksburg, you see a 1-year delay so that we can evaluate the opportunity to co-locate with affordable housing. The news there is that the Clarksburg Town Center project, which is directly across the street from the library site, is in with Park and Planning for their site plan approvals. So they're bringing in a grocer, as well as inline retail, as well as some multifamily. That may create an opportunity to partner with Elm Street on just because of the sync in construction and timing. It may not. We expect to know whether that's going to work or whether there's an opportunity for a partnership this summer. And so if not, we'll report back to the executive and see what he wants to do. If so, we'll certainly propose some of those options to the executive and then obviously to council. So we expect to establish or not a partnership within the next 6 to 7 months, certainly by the end of the summertime, and certainly well before we start discussing the FY25 CIP, which is right around the corner.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And on that point, Ms. Chen, to staff here and to DGS and library, let's put a point in time to come back as soon as you have some, in the summer. If you get word on that, let's bring it back and discuss it. I just think, to Ms. Vassallo's point, there are a lot of people anxious in Clarksburg for that library to be built, and we just want to be as transparent as possible about what's happening.
Certainly, we do. And the Clarksburg Town Center, and of course, folks in Clarksburg have been waiting a long time for their town center, and so we didn't want to throw a monkey wrench into that time frame either. And so we're very sensitive to time and be happy to report as we go along, rather than trying to have a finished product before you. So I'm more than happy to do that. On Chevy Chase Library, you're both familiar with the background there, and again, the delay is just because we know that whether it's a renovation with affordable housing or some version thereof, it's all going to be much more expensive than the original budget. And so it's an affordability as much as it is a feasibility study of affordable. We know that we can co-locate affordable housing there. We know we have interested parties. We went out to the market, talked to partners or potential partners. There's a lot of interest, whether it's multifamily or towns or some version thereof. We just couldn't afford it. You're really talking about, because it's such a small site, it's the introduction of perhaps structured parking and other things. And so based on the current budget for the Chevy Chase Library, it was doubling and potentially tripling that budget, and it caused us to take hit the pause button and take some more time to evaluate what makes the most sense and where we get the bang for the buck as it relates to housing.
So what is the plan in the interim then? Obviously that building needs some love, and how are we bridging? Because pushing this out of the 6th year, what's the plan?
Well, I'm not sure I would use the word love as regarding what that building needs, but it needs a lot of help. And I've got my facilities folks tuned into that. I mean, frankly, my facilities division was gleefully anticipating the renovation or replacement of the current building, but they know because of the constraints fiscally for the future project, we're going to have to double down. So we're going to be spending a lot of maintenance money. It's not capital money. It's going to be out of our level of effort, planned lifetime asset replacement level of effort, and others to repair electrical systems, mechanical systems, plumbing systems. The building itself has got some challenges dating back some years, is when we've had to come and fix roof drain systems and all. We're just going to keep doing that until this project can be realized. There's really precious little else that you can do other than just being attentive and proactive. We don't want to be reactive. We know the building. We know what it needs. We're just going to try and get in there and stay on top of it.
Okay. well, obviously, this will be a big topic when we take the full CIP up.
You bet.
Next year. And Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. So, lots of thoughts, but just I'll try to narrow them down. I very much support and feel strongly that, and very much was excited about the legislation moved forward by Councilmember Jawando, that we do need a complete and total exhaustive analysis to check everywhere we can to track for affordable housing. But we also have to be careful that that's not at the expense of the priority for the CIP initially, which in both instances here is the library. And so, and clearly we need the delay to be able to assess. But my concern is that 2 years from now or 1 year from now, we're not going to be in any much better of a position than we are today. And yet we'll be 1 and 2 years further down the road before anything is done to assess the needs of both projects. And let's face it, just starting with Clarksburg, there were commitments made to that community by previous county executives and previous councils that have not been honored. And we have fallen short significantly in meeting the expectations of that community. When those folks purchased their homes and planted their families here, they did it with the expectation that these amenities were going to come, and they haven't. So I think we need the year and the 2 years. I mean, I think that's reasonable. But we also, and it's noted in the packet, and DGS is noting this as well, there are other uses, such as childcare, which are equally important and very necessary all across the county, but particularly in these two areas, where Clarksburg has a lot of young families, and that downtown Chevy Chase, western part of the county corridor has a lot of needs as well. There's significant housing going on just down the road from the Chevy Chase Library, which is going to potentially bring a number of families into that community. So I guess I would just, you have to do this anyways as part of the previous policy passed by previous councils and looking at other potential amenities such as childcare. I'm not suggesting we are, but those need to be treated just as objectively and given the same level of thought and interest as affordable housing. Because if it accelerates a project and gets us the library, addresses a community need more quickly than if, these two projects, which could be, particularly Chevy Chase, we're talking a lot of money that would need to be put up for us to make this work, which would mean delaying a heck of a lot of projects in the current queue within the CIP.
Correct.
Then that's we can't create more problems than we're trying to solve in our analysis. So it's a tough issue because we need the housing. But this gives you all a little bit more breathing room, but we got to have a plan after the year, after the 2 years to move us forward, in my opinion. Mr. Dyson.
Well, we don't object at all to everything that you just said. It is a capacity issue. We've even looked at the notion of could we keep the Chevy Chase Library where it is, go ahead and refurbish it, and try and squeeze in some few towns around that site. We got a number of very interesting proposals of possibilities. And that's a dilemma because do you pat yourself on the back for throwing in a half a dozen affordable townhouse units and say, there, we did it, when you could have done considerably more? Those are the challenges that have to be weighed. And in this particular location's case, we're talking 6 to 8 years before that occurs. Now, every year, every other year, we're looking, seems like every month or every day, we're analyzing the CIP. And opportunities could come up to shift that. But right now, that project is in the out years. And that's, no one wants to see that. I was the one that first put the halt on the refurbishment when I saw the extent of work that needed to be done. I just didn't think it was responsible for the county to spend that amount of money on a refurbishment that would still leave you a library that was inadequate to serve the community. It'd be a nice library, but it's just not enough. So we try and want to deliver back to the community in reward for its patience a much better library, as well as addressing childcare, because we look at childcare as well, and affordable housings. But in this case, it's no one likes it, but we're in the position where we just gotta. It's going to take some time.
Appreciate that. And Chair Jawando is absolutely right that the more in-depth conversation will happen next year when we discuss the full
No doubt.
CIP.
And we would
But,
welcome that.
yeah, clearly this is where we need to go right now. So I don't have any objections to the deferrals, so that we gives us a little bit more time. But we'll take it back up again next year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate Councilman Ravenaz and Director Dice mentioning that. Remembering we put the brakes on this because it was almost looking like a new library, and it was a refurbishment, and so and the space is obviously constrained, and so if we are going to, why not pay a little more or a lot more and get a better library and actually get some housing or childcare, but in this case I think housing is what we're looking at there. I would ask that again with the other project, keep us posted on what is the conversations that are happening. I'm going to say the same thing to the county executive, because I think the worst thing we can do is just not communicate and show that the urgency is happening, particularly related to Chevy Chase, but also Clarksburg, and I think you gave a really good explanation of the town center interplay and what's going on there.
Yeah, and we'll know more about Clarksburg in the short term, and we're committed to coming back and keeping you informed.
I appreciate that. So I think, Mr. Sala, do you have anything to add?
I think that from library's viewpoint, and Chevy Chase particularly, given the footprint of the building as well as the myriad of infrastructure problems that we see, our support would definitely be for a fully new building that can include all of the technology improvements that are seen in libraries that are being built across the country these days. So we are willing to wait in order to get something that we can return to the community that's really going to be, again, a central hub, a centerpiece for all of the residents. As you noted, the people who will be moving in down by the Purple Line, and then of course if it's possible for us to put housing on that site along with the library. That has been done in other areas of the country. It's been done in DC, and it really is a benefit to the community and also to the library. So
Appreciate that.
That is our outlook there.
Yeah, and I agree. And I just would be remiss if I did not bring up again, we have some structural issues with the CIP. And these are the tough choices, that you have that happen. And, Montgomery County is great because we have great amenities, we have great community, but communities have to wait longer when we just have these types of issues. And when we did the growth in infrastructure, we took money out of the CIP. It was impact tax related, but that's how it connects to something like this, because when you have less in there, you have to push all these projects that communities really want out. And we have to address that and be honest with the public, and about, this is what it costs to do the things that you want, and we're all going to have to contribute to that in some way, and we can be creative. But I just think that discussion has to happen because, unfortunately, we're going to be in this unenviable position of continued delays and cost overruns, and pushing things out of the 6 years. So, with that, I think without objection, we'll accept the deferrals. And actually, I'm sorry. Yes, we can't forget about your neighbor about noise, and library here. And Ms. Lambert, do you have anything to add? Okay, well, just to put it on the record, there is a 1-year delay, also in addition to Clarksburg and Chevy Chase and the Damascus refurbishment. There is a 1-year delay for noise. But there has been progress made there, so I don't know if there's anything you want to say.
I feel like we need to shine the light of reality on the situation here. And we've all heard about rising costs of construction. We've been talking, it's not just in Montgomery County, it's everywhere. We've been talking to our friends and colleagues over in, friends and colleagues in Fairfax County. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're colleagues. And they've experienced the same thing, 36%, 40% increases in bid prices when they go out. We did take bids in for the noise project, $8 million.
Wow.
for what was a couple years ago estimated to be about $3.5 million. That's just irresponsible to pay that kind of money for work that frankly shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah.
And that's why we are going to stop, cancel, rebid. With the project scope is fine. There's nothing wrong with the plan that has been reviewed and embraced by the community and lovers of Noyes Library, and it's a solid strategy for expanding the use and renovation of this historic structure. But $8 million is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, it's officially a one-year pause. My recommendation is we'll track the industry costs. The General Building Index reported from Engineering News Record for this month is yet another 3.5% increase overall.
Huh.
So until that trend stabilizes and starts going down, we're going to have to give some serious thought to some of these projects, and this is one of them. It's a great project. We want to do it. Renovating historic structures is one of the coolest things that we can do, but we just need to be responsible.
I appreciate that, and it's a good point. While the rate of inflation and related costs has started to slow, it's still going up, and that obviously has a big impact on these projects. And I think it's wise for particularly a project like this, to just put on the brakes and hope that trend changes. Councilor Allen, has anything else? Okay. So without objection, we'll accept the council staff recommendation for these deferrals and the Damascus Library project as well. And with that, we are done and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the active duty side. So as we transition out into the civilian sector,